We are going to go ahead and get started right on time here today. Welcome and thank you all for joining me on Zoom. I always start my Zoom presentations like this, but man, I much prefer being in person with people, but I make the Zoom work. And it is a very convenient way of communicating about avenues from the warmth of our homes on a very cold day like today here in Michigan. So welcome everyone. My name is Caitlin Mills, and I am here today to talk with you all about avenues. And I like to start out my presentations by getting a quick show of hands. Is anybody familiar with what Brio Living Services is? Does anybody know Brio?
No.
No hands are going up, so I'm going to take that as a no. Brio is actually the new fancy name for Porter Hills Village. Porter Hills went through an affiliation a few years ago, and just like some of these other companies or organizations that are getting new names, we got a new name, which is Brio Living Services. Most people still know us as Porter Hills and call us Porter Hills, and we are one and the same. So with that in mind, we are here actually today to talk about Avenues, which is our Aging at Home program that was started in 2011. So we're going to dig in a little bit today on what does it mean to age at home? How does this Avenues program work? What does it cost? And we're going to really hopefully end today with you having a really thorough understanding of this option for yourself. And I like to start out, or I want to start out today by asking you this question. When you hear the word aging, is anyone brave enough to tell me what words do you associate with the concept of aging? What do we think of? Anyone?
Decrepitude.
Yes, decrepit. Okay, I have people who say that. Absolutely. I start to just feel different. Aging feels and looks a certain way sometimes for people. What else? What else is associated with aging?
Difficult.
Difficult, Jane. Yes. Okay. Yeah, it can be really difficult for some people. Everyone's path to aging is really different, and some people have a hard path. Yeah. Anything
Loss,
else?
loss of independence.
Ooh, loss of independence. That is a huge one. Yeah. And I think a lot of people will say independence is so important to me. And that's why loss of independence and aging is so hard. That's a great one. Any other? Challenging. Yeah.
Care needs.
Oh, care needs, John. That's good. Yeah, care needs is a big one. We start to realize, well, gosh, maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, am I going to have someone physically caring for me? And what will that feel like if I've been independent my whole life? What will that be like? So, before I started asking this question about aging in my presentations, I did what every good 31-year-old does. I asked this question of my two grandmas, who I happen to be quite close with. My grandmas are absolutely lovely. They happen to be friends, which is kind of unique. And they couldn't be more opposite from each other. My one grandma, she'll say this about herself. She will say, she describes herself as being a little bit curmudgeonly. And when I asked her about aging, she said similar things to what you all are saying. She said, my body feels different. I feel uncomfortable. She said, my friends are dying, which honestly is a really big one, I think, for people, is loss and the grief associated with aging and losing the people you love. My grandpa passed away, and so she's a widow, and she said widowhood has been a big part of my aging journey that I didn't expect. And she just said it feels different than what I imagined it was going to feel like. And I'm having trouble figuring out what is my purpose at this stage in life, which are all really real and really honest feelings for her to have with aging. And then it's interesting. I asked my other grandma, who's kind of unique. She's what she'd describe as a glass half full type of gal. She is really bubbly and she walks through life with these beautiful rose-colored glasses, and she is just very optimistic. And it's interesting because her perspective on aging was very different than my other grandma. I want to share with you some of the things she said. She said things like independence, which we've already identified. For her, she said, my independence is so important to me. I'm doing everything in my power to stay independent. I am staying active. And I think that that's a big part of me being able to stay independent. And she's walking and trying to be as active as possible, not trying to slow down just because she turned 83 recently. She said relational. She actually lost her husband, my grandpa, as well a number of years ago. And she has developed just this beautiful group of other widowed ladies from her church. And for her, aging has been this unique experience where she's building new relationships with friends. And she said that kind of has been keeping me going as I have these new relationships that I look forward to, that I'm doing life with, if you will. She said travel, which I thought was interesting. She's been traveling with her friends and they still get out and do things together. And she has said, you know, just because I'm a widow and just because I'm in my 80s doesn't mean that I have to stay home and do nothing. I want to live my life and I'm going to do that. And so she's continued to do that. She's continued to adventure in life. This one's interesting. She said intellectual. I love this. She said to me, you know, Caitlin, what I'm recognizing is people in my life, my kids, my grandkids, and my church community are all of a sudden realizing that I know things, that I have maybe a bit of life wisdom to share with others. And now people are asking me for my input on things. And hopefully you all are experiencing that as well. But she said, I've really appreciated that people are asking me and people are including me in on conversations or decisions for my church, for my family, etc. And then finally, she said this, which I just love that she said this. She said, Caitlin, don't you know that 80 is the new 60? Has anyone heard someone say this? I have heard people say this in our community, actually. My grandma, of course, being one of them who said it. But she said, you know, 80 is different than it was 20 years ago. And I think those of us who work in the senior living industry, we are seeing this as well. We're seeing that 80 today is really different than 80 20 years ago. And what people in their 80s today is wanting is very different than 10, 20 years ago. And so we're seeing this really interesting shift and change in how people are wanting to age, what they want life to look like in their 70s, 80s, 90s, etc. And I think we're all seeing this. We're seeing this change, if you will. Another interesting change that we are seeing is this. We here in West Michigan, and I think on a national level as well, we are seeing that more and more people are interested in aging at home. This is really interesting. We are seeing that less people are expressing interest in moving to senior living communities. People are saying, you know what, I love my community. I love my house. I love my neighbors. I love my freedom that's associated with that. And I would love the freedom and independence and ability to stay home through end of life if I can. This is really interesting. We're seeing this just, again, on a national level, but also here in Grand Rapids. And what's interesting about this is if you fall into this category of people who are interested in aging at home, there still is quite a bit of nuance that comes with this. Why is this challenging? I will tell you, it's challenging because aging at home is hard. And the reality of this is that if you want to age at home, you are probably asking yourself, well, who is going to help me do this? How am I going to have care when I need it? Support, coordination. Who is going to help me maintain my house when I can't do that anymore? All of these questions about how is this even possible? There's nuance to it. And yet we are seeing this increased demand and desire for this in the community. So again, we're seeing this change, this interesting change. Now I want to tell you something that is not changing, and I sure wish that it was changing. What is not changing in Grand Rapids and also across the US is the actual cost of aging-related care. Does anybody know, on average, how much 1 year of assisted living care is here in West Michigan? Or you can cheat and you can look at my slide. I'm going to tell you, for 1 year of assisted living care here in West Michigan, on average, it's about $100,000 for 1 year. Skilled nursing or long-term care is even higher, coming in at $150,000 for 1 year of care for one person. These numbers for most people are really, really big numbers to be facing as we're aging. And I think most people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80s are faced with the reality of how do I realistically set aside enough money to make sure that my aging related care is going to be paid for? How do I have a financial plan in place to make sure that my kids one day are not slapped with a very big assisted living bill for me, right? I was just talking with my mom about this. My mom is turning 60 this year, and she'd hate me if she knew I was sharing that, but she's turning 60 this year. And I said, Mom, do you know how much assisted living costs these days? And she said, well, your dad and I, it's so far down the road. It's so far, we've got years. And I said to her, you do? Yeah, of course. But gosh, when you're in your 80s, these numbers are going to be even higher. This is something that more financial advisors should be helping people prepare for. How do we make sure we have enough dollars set aside for the cost of care? And what I find is over the years, I've had a number of older adults ask me, well, gosh, those numbers are huge, but surely there's a program out there that helps me pay for aging related care. That's a great question. So one of the things that people will ask me is, well, what about Medicaid? Surely I will have access to Medicaid, and Medicaid will help me pay for my aging related care. And I say to them, I sure wish, but sadly, no. Let me tell you why. Medicaid is a program that exists to help with skilled nursing, the highest level of care, if you qualify for it. However, your overall assets have to dip below a pretty small amount for you to ever qualify for Medicaid. Right now in the state of Michigan, it's about $2,000 that your overall assets have to fall beneath for you to qualify for something like Medicaid. And so the reality is that most Americans will have too much in their assets, or they will have too much money to ever qualify for assistance from Medicaid. And then sometimes people will say to me, well, Caitlin, what about Medicare? Surely Medicare will help me pay for aging related care. And I say, gosh, I wish. So Medicare is an interesting one, right? Medicare exists to help cover medically specific or medical specific expenses. Examples of this would be things like a rehab stay. You fall and break your hip or your knee and you need to go to Mary Free Bed for a few weeks. Well, that's when Medicare is going to kick in. It might exist to help for short-term hospitalizations or physical therapy in the home, things that are medical. It is not going to pay for aging-related care. It doesn't pay for a caregiver to come to your home. It doesn't pay for you to go to assisted living, nothing. And then sometimes people will say, well, I'm a veteran. Surely there are benefits for me. And the answer is maybe. Yeah, possibly. It depends though. Just because you're a veteran does not mean that you have coverage for aging related care. It depends on a lot of components. depends on years of service. Did you see combat or not? Were you injured? So not all veterans will have access to support for aging related care. Some will. And if you fall into that veteran category, I would encourage you to talk to the VA about what you might have access to benefits wise. The reality is that most of us will private pay for our care as we're aging. Those numbers that we just looked at, we will pay out of pocket when the time comes for our actual care. Now, some people, you might fall into this category. Does anyone raise a hand? Does anyone have long-term care insurance here that they paid for a while ago? Okay, pretty common. Yeah, maybe in your 50s, 60s, you bought a long-term care insurance policy with the idea of later down the road when I need care, my policy is going to give me some money towards my care. They're not going to help me find care. They're not going to care for me, but they'll give me some money towards my care. So some people have coverage for the financial part of care when the time comes. And then finally, you have a program like Avenues, a program that actually exists to not only care for you at home, to help you age in place at home, but a program that offers the financial coverage as well. Our Avenues members have this peace of mind knowing that once they join Avenues, all of their future care is included in their Avenues membership. And we're going to go a little bit more in depth on this later. So what is Avenues? How does it work? What is it? When did we start? What's the history of it? Well, Avenues was started in 2011 by Porter Hills, and we started it because we saw that so many people here in West Michigan want to age at home. Avenues are the formal name for this type of program is Continuing Care at Home. We happen to be the only continuing care at home program here in West Michigan, but you will see other programs like us on a national level. There are about 40 programs like Avenues across the United States. We were the 13th program to open, and we're pretty excited about that, or we're excited at the time, because at the time, programs like this were kind of on the cutting edge of being new to the market and offering something new to people that wasn't just senior living. But the idea of Avenues is we are bringing senior living to you in your home setting. To be a member of Avenues, you have to live in the greater Grand Rapids area, or your primary address has to be in the greater Grand Rapids area. A lot of our members still travel quite a bit or spend time in the winters down in the warm states, and that's absolutely okay. But your primary address does have to be in the greater Grand Rapids area to be an Avenues member. And since we started this program, we are incredibly proud to say that all of our members over the years have successfully aged at home with the help of Avenues through end of life. It's something that we are really proud of. It is something that takes a lot of care, support, coordination, and expertise, but that's exactly why we exist. We are the experts on aging at home. I'll go back for you there, Mike.
Oh, great.
There you go.
Thank you.
So what other components of Avenues are there? Well, a big component of Avenues is asset protection. When you join Avenues, it allows you to pay for future care, but at a capped cost and in today's dollars. What does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. It means that our Avenues members pay an entrance fee when they join, which is based on age. And then your future care, whether you need a little bit of care or a lot of care, is covered by Avenues. The interesting thing about aging, or maybe the hard thing about aging, is we have no idea what the future holds for us. If you've cared for a loved one or you've seen a parent age, we all know that people all have a different path towards aging. Some people need a year of care. Some people need 3 years of care. Some people need 5 years of care. We have no way of knowing what that looks like. And Avenues gives our members this peace of mind of no matter how much you care, no matter how much care you need, your care is covered by your membership. We are a program that still falls under the not-for-profit category of our greater organization. So people will ask me all the time, are you an insurance program? And I say, we're not. We're still a not-for-profit. And every year we still go through the state reapproval process. So the state of Michigan oversees how this program works, how we spend our finances, what money we hold in reserve, and essentially how this program works. So there's a fair amount of oversight for continuing care at home programs like us. So what is Avenues actually doing? What are the services that we're actually providing to our members to help you age at home? First and foremost, maybe the most important aspect of our Avenues program are our member navigators. Our member navigators make up the wellness team for Avenues as a whole. And the idea of the member navigator is this is a person that you're building a long-term relationship with. And their job, their goal is to walk alongside of you through every step of your aging journey. They're coordinating all of the in-home care that you might need. They're overseeing it. They're a part of your aging path, your aging journey. They're with you and making sure that you have everything that you need related to aging in your home setting. They are experts in aging at home. Our member navigators, they could be any number of different professional backgrounds. Some of them are nurses, some of them are LPNs, some of them are social workers, some of them have more of a wellness background to make up this entire well-rounded wellness team as a whole. And together, they are helping our members age at home. I like to joke, or we like to joke on our team, that member navigators are kind of like having an oldest daughter. Does anyone on today's call have an oldest daughter? No oldest daughters today. Okay. Oh, okay. Jane has okay. We've got some people with oldest daughters. Now, not all oldest daughters fit this exact mold, but a lot of times oldest daughters are the people that you want around when things are going wrong. They are cool, calm, and collected under a crisis. They know what to do when something happens. They are oftentimes really fierce advocates for the people that they love. That is what it's like to have a member navigator in your life. Their hope is to build a really deep relationship with the members of this program, with the members that they serve, because we want you to feel comfortable with them as you're aging, as some of those more intimate things come up associated with aging, care-related needs, hospitalizations, surgeries. They're a part of those big steps, those big moments in your life. A lot of our members will say to us, or some of them have said to me over the years, you know, my navigator is not technically family, and I know that, but they have started to feel like family to me. They know my kids, they know my grandkids, they know my life, they know what my goals are. That is the role of the member navigator in our members' lives. And so when you join Avenues, one of the things that your navigator is going to first engage you in is a conversation about proactive health and wellness. We really believe, because we've seen this work in real life, we really believe in the power of proactive health and wellness. And we've seen the success of what it looks like to engage in health and wellness early, while you're still healthy and well, and how it dramatically impacts your overall aging experience. So when our members join, oftentimes your navigator is going to sit down with you and say, hey, let's talk about something called the 8 dimensions of wellness. That's this fancy wheel that you see here on my screen. Their hope is that you feel a sense of wellness in all of these categories in your life. And you might be thinking, well, yeah, I feel fine in the financial category or the physical category or the spiritual category. But sometimes we have members who say to our navigators, you know what, there is a category here that I would like to work on. How can you help me do this? Let me give some examples. We had a gentleman who joined this program, and in one of his first or second meetings with his member navigator, she was going through these dimensions with him, and he said, you know what, I do have this kind of big fear that's been looming over me the past 10 years when I think about aging. And he said to his member navigator, you know, my grandpa and my dad both had dementia, and their dementia progressed really fast and it was really hard to watch. And he said, you know, I am really realistic and I know that that's possibly what my aging journey is going to look like. And I feel really motivated. I would like to, if there's something I can do now to combat this, to understand it, to learn about it, to be prepared for it, I want to do that. And his navigator said, well, we know a lot about dementia. I know a lot about dementia. Let's look at research together. Let's read a book together. Let's talk about, you know, what will this possibly look like for you? But also, what does research say about things that you can do today to combat this, right? What things can we do proactively? And so they did just that. They started having meetings on a regular basis. They read a book together actually about dementia. And some of the things that this book or research suggested were things like, you know, things that he can start doing today, reading, using his mind more. Any number, I mean, there was a list of things that they started talking through. And one of the things that his member navigators suggested was, hey, would you ever be open to taking some classes at a local college, even? Just as a way to stay social, as a way to stay intellectually engaged, to keep your mind working, to keep things fresh. And this gentleman said, sure, why not? I'll try it. And so his navigator helped him sign up for some adult learning classes at Aquinas College. They're called OLLI classes. Maybe you're familiar with them. We believe so much in proactive health and wellness that we offer our Avenues members a wellness benefit each month, money that they can spend towards proactive health and wellness. And so these classes that this gentleman was taking, Avenues was paying for those classes for him. People use their wellness benefit for any number of things. We've had people join this program and say, hey, I would love to be more physically fit. And then we've said, well, let's find a way for you to use your wellness benefit. People have used that money towards personal trainers, gym memberships. People have used it. We had a woman who joined our program and she said to us, you know, I've been private paying for acupuncture for years. I've got some pain throughout my body and acupuncture has worked well for me. And her navigator said, well, let's use your wellness benefit for that. Let's allow you to use that towards that, because for you, that's a wellness and proactive health related thing. We believe in the power of proactive health and wellness. We also believe in the power of proactive future planning. This is a huge thing that our navigators do with members. Our navigators are really skilled in helping you start to think proactively about the future, about aging. Sometimes our navigators will ask members, hey, have you sat down and done pre-funeral planning? I know it's 20 years out, maybe 10 years out, but have you thought about what that means? Do you have plans for that? So that if and when that time comes, your kids, your family is not scrambling to figure those arrangements out. That's something that we help our members with. Might also look like having conversations with members about end of life planning. We've had a number of members over the years who've said to us, listen, I have my patient advocate paperwork filled out, but I don't 100% know what the role of that person is. And I sure as heck know that my daughter, who's my patient advocate, has no idea what her responsibility is with that role. And we've said to our members, well, let us sit down with you and your family and facilitate that conversation. We know a lot about patient advocate. We know a lot about what it means to be in that role. Let's sit down and talk that through. Let's plan together. Maybe it's as simple as talking with you over the course of the next few years as you're aging about what are your actual end of life goals. We find that when people join this program, their goals might be really different than 10 years from now. And so that's something that we revisit with people quite often. Our hope is that when that time comes, we can support your family, your patient advocate, and you in reminding you of what did you want at end of life? These are the things that you had said, a year ago. Are these still true? And then being an advocate for you when that time comes. This might also look like home concierge services. This one is really important. We recognize that if you're aging at home, there is likely to come a time where the maintenance of your home is more challenging. Part of this program is our job is to find and bring in any professional imaginable that you might need to help with home maintenance. This could look like a lot of different things. For some of our members, it looks like bringing in housekeeping one day, bringing in lawn service, bringing in snow removal. We had a lady who back in April, she's one of our Avenues members. She lives by herself. She's fairly young. She's, 72, I think. And she had a massive tree go down in her front yard after a storm. And she started calling tree places. People were giving her really high quotes or saying to her, we can't come out for a number of months to deal with this for you. And so she called us and she said, I need help with this. I don't have a tree guy and I need one. And we said, great, we're glad you called. That's part of our job. We were able to find her 2 different options that were within her price range that she wanted to pay. And then we were able to say to her, hey, these are people that we have been able to background check. They are vetted. They are safe individuals. She ended up choosing one and we scheduled and coordinated for them to come into her home. So we're even here to help you with the maintenance of living at home, if and when you're ready to give that up, or you say, this is just too much for me. I don't want to shovel my snow anymore. That's okay. Let us find someone for you. Okay, this slide is my least favorite slide to do. And I think when I start talking about this, people don't want me to talk about it either. And here is why. I think it's really hard for any of us to imagine a time in which we're going to need physical aging related care. I mean, I say that myself included. It's not the same situation, but I am pregnant with my first child right now, due in June. And I'm having a really hard time conceptualizing that my husband might actually need to take care of me in the summer because I'm so fiercely independent. And I've never needed someone to help me, to care for me. And I've found over the years working with older adults, I think people feel the same way about aging, is when you're independent and feeling great, this is really hard to imagine. And yet, if you are hoping to age at home, if you have an idea or a goal in mind for how you want to age and the type of care, quality of care that you want, this is something that you have to plan for in advance. So when I talk about care is a big part of Avenues. We are saying that we are caring for you physically as you are aging. So what does this look like? It looks like any number of things, but the role of your navigator is to really advocate for you to make sure that you have all of the in-home care that you might need as you're aging and to help coordinate your medical care as you're aging. I want to give an example of this. One of the best examples I think I have of someone in this program who really utilized our care. We had a lady who joined Avenues. She was in her early 70s when she joined. And when she joined, she told us, I'm joining very proactively. I don't need this now, but I know that one day I will, or I suspect one day I will. And she wanted a plan in place. And she was in the program from about age 70 until 75, 76, and still was quite healthy, really well, pretty independent. She found herself at a specialist appointment, receiving a diagnosis that she realized almost instantly was going to change the entire course of her aging experience. She was diagnosed with something called pulmonary fibrosis. And if you are a nurse or doctor, you know that the path for pulmonary fibrosis is a really hard path, or it can be. And her doctor gave her a timeline and said, this is usually how long people live with some type of disease, with a disease like this. And she left that appointment feeling just overwhelmed. She didn't know the questions to ask. She had no idea what to do next. And the first call that she made was to her member navigator, who said to her, let's just take a quick breath. Why don't we get together in person tomorrow? Why don't you invite your kids and let's talk about what this means and what it's going to mean for your future. And so they did that. They got together in person and started to talk about, her navigator, really talked about with her about, what are your fears with this? They grieved together for how this was going to change the future of her aging journey. And then they started to plan. And so her navigator said to her, if the progression of your disease looks like this, here's what we're going to do to make sure that you can stay at home and have everything you need. If the progression looks like this, here's what we're going to do. If it looks like this, here's what we're going to do. And they started to plan. The progression of this woman's disease was quicker, I think, than anyone anticipated. She was hospitalized not shortly after. Her navigator was with her at the hospital every day, making sure her care was good, making sure she was comfortable, making sure she felt like she was in the loop about what was going on medically. I don't know if any of you have ever been hospitalized, but hospitals are chaotic. Sometimes it's hard just to get simple answers for when can I go home? What's going on with me? How are my labs? The role of the navigator was to help advocate, find those answers for her. And then most importantly, when it came time for her to discharge home, it was really clear that for the first time in her life, she was going to need some care. And the role of her navigator was to make sure all of that was arranged before she even left the hospital. So the day she discharged, her navigator came and picked her up from the hospital. They stopped and got her prescriptions on the way home. And when she got home, her caregiver was already waiting for her. Care was already arranged to be around the clock while she recovered from her hospitalization. And her navigator had even thought through things like, what medical equipment are you going to need? How are you going to know how to use these things? Let me show you how to use this medical equipment. She had meals arranged to be brought into the home for her. She had care arranged. That is the level of care that our Avenues program provides to you in your home setting. This might also mean just care coverage in general. So this care that this woman was receiving, well, that was all covered by her Avenues membership. She wasn't getting a bill each month for care. That was something that was already covered for her as an Avenues member. The care coverage part is really interesting. So while most of our members, their goal is to age at home, the care coverage component of Avenues, it actually follows you no matter where you go. So if there was ever time in the future where you did make the transition to living in assisted living, memory care, or skilled nursing, your Avenues membership pays for your care in those settings as well. We follow you no matter where you go. So if you were living in assisted living and got a bill each year for $100,000, that's coming right to Avenues, and that's part of your care coverage in this program. This might also look like medical transportation. This is huge. This one in short-term care. Even our younger members who are not necessarily ready for aging-related, long-term, ongoing care, there are unexpected things that pop up all the time for our members, where they realize, shoot, I did not think I was going to need something this soon in this program, but I think I need support. One of those things that comes up is transportation. We've had people in this program in their 60s, mid 70s, even 80s who've said, hey, I'm getting a knee replacement. I need someone to take me, wait with me the whole time, or I want my member navigator to be with me at my pre-op appointments. That's a big part of what the navigators are doing, is going to medical appointments with you, taking you to those things. We had a member a few weeks ago, I ran into her and I said to her, what is your favorite thing about this program if you were to pinpoint something? And she said, without a doubt, medical transportation. And she said to me, I still drive. Don't get me wrong. I'm very independent. But she explained she had a colonoscopy come up recently. And she said, before Avenues, I used to have to ask a friend or a family member to give up an entire day to go and sit with me at an appointment like this and bring me back after. And I hated asking friends for that. Now I have this peace of mind of, this is why I'm an Avenues member. I have support for this. I call my navigator. It might also look like short-term support. Maybe you have a surgery coming up and you need care after while you're recovering. But then once you're recovered, you say to us, I'm good. I'll call you the next time I need you. That is a part of Avenues that is also widely utilized. Might not just be long-term care that you're ready for. It could be a short-term need that you have. So what is this program? How do you become a member of Avenues, and what does it cost to be an Avenues member? Well, first and foremost, Avenues is a proactive approach to aging, meaning this is a program that you have to qualify for. This is not a program where you wait until you need care and then you join. This is a proactive program. So let me explain that a little further. To be qualified to be a member of Avenues, you first and foremost have to be 55 years of age or older. You must be currently living independently. So this is a program, again, that you join before you need support, before you need care. You have to be fully independent to be in Avenues. You must pass a wellness screening, and you have to be what I'll reference as reasonably healthy to become a member of Avenues. There are certain diagnoses that are automatic disqualifiers for Avenues. Things that come to mind that people often ask, well, what are those? A big one would be if you already had a dementia diagnosis, that would be an automatic disqualifier. If you had a terminal illness, and there are some others as well, but it depends. We do a 5-year medical look back and look at your health history to determine, is this something that you're qualifying for? And the reason we do that is we're taking on all the financial risk of your future. We're saying to you, no matter how much care you need as you're aging, we're going to pay for all of it. But because of that, you have to be healthy when you join this program. And finally, you must have health insurance. The reason for that is what your health insurance covers is different than what Avenues covers, and vice versa. So they do two different things, and you must maintain your health insurance and have coverage for medical related health needs as well. And now the golden question that everyone wants to know is, well, how much does this program cost? I will tell you, and I'm going to give some examples of cost right now. Avenues is an entrance fee based model. You pay a one-time entrance fee to join Avenues, which is based on your age. So this program is less expensive the younger you are and goes up in price as you get older. And once you become a member, you start paying a monthly service fee and continue to do so as long as you're a member of this program. Let me give an example of cost. I'm going to give an example for a single person and for a couple, because with couples, we offer a discount. It's called our couples discount. My first example I'll give is for a 75-year-old who is single. They would pay an entrance fee of $142,000. And they would start paying a monthly service fee of $650. I'll give an example for a couple where each person is 75. Each person would pay an entrance fee of $124,000. And each person would start paying a monthly service fee of $624. People love to ask me about, are those numbers tax deductible? And so I'll briefly reference that they are actually. Both of those numbers are tax deductible as a prepaid medical service, and that's an important thing we remind our members of each year. But hearing those numbers, this is usually like when I like to reference back to my earlier slide of the out-of-pocket cost of care. Today in West Michigan, it's about $100,000 for 1 year of assisted living care. Avenues, in many ways, is similar to coverage financially for your care. There's a way to prepay for your future care, but you're paying for it at a capped cost. The best example of that I have to give, so I like to share about a gentleman named John, who I started working with back this past spring, actually. When I started working with John, he told me, Caitlin, I have 2 goals. And I said, well, what are those? And he said, well, my first goal is that he said to me, I am not an incredibly rich man. I have saved well. I've done okay for myself. But I want to make sure, A, that I have a financial plan in place for my care. And if I can, I would love to leave money to my grandkids. He said, I know it's not going to be a ton, but that's a goal of mine. The second thing he told me is my second goal is I really want to stay home. My dad was in assisted living. It was not a good experience for our family. I have no interest in living in a care-based setting. I want to stay home. And he said, so what I want you to do for me is I want you to run my numbers and I want you to show me what does it look like financially for me to join Avenues versus what would it look like if I did end up going to assisted living and I just paid market rate or I paid out of pocket for my care. And so, of course, I whipped out my calculator and started punching numbers in, and I'm going to show you what we found. I'll share that John today is 75 years old. And he said to me that his dad lived in assisted living from 85 until 90. So this is what we came up with together. So for John, in 10 years from now, today he's 75, when he's 85, if he moved to assisted living at Porter Hills, for example, and he lived in assisted living from age 85 until age 90, he would pay about $1.2 million out of pocket for his care. The way I came up with that is I took today's assisted living prices and I started just increasing it by 5%. So in 10 years from now, when he's 85, assisted living will be about $188,000. So John saw this and he said, I don't love this. What else do you have for me? But he said, there's no way that Avenues will be that much off financially from this. And so we ran his numbers together, and this is what we found. So for John, if he joined at age 75 and he paid his entrance fee of $142,000, I then took his monthly service fee and I turned that into a yearly cost. And I increased that monthly service fee at about 5% each year, which is typical for this program. So you'll see that his monthly service fee goes up. And what we found is if John joined Avenues at age 75 and he lived until he was 90 years old, altogether, he would pay for his Avenues membership about $310,000. All the while, for him, knowing that he has every level of care that he might need throughout that period of time, in-home care, out-of-home care, whether he needs a lot of care or a little care, he has that. He has access to that with this Avenues membership. For him, this helped him hit his two goals. He wanted to age at home, and he wanted to be able to leave money to family, and he wanted to have a financial plan in place for his care. And so for John, Avenues ended up being a great fit. He became a member with us this past fall, which, was exciting for me because I was able to help him figure out how do we reach your goals together. So we're coming to a close today. I want to leave some time for questions. I love to end on this slide because I love research. I am a social worker by background. I've got my master's in social work, and I find this study to be so interesting. 93% of adults reported that they wanted to live at home. And this is again, I think we're seeing this a lot, is people saying, I want to stay home. I love the idea of that. And yet in this 2023 Harvard study, of these people, only 21% of this same study said that they were actually willing to make plans to age at home. This is so interesting to me. Again, I've worked with hundreds of people, hundreds of older people in my career. And one of the things I love to ask people is, how do you want to age? What do you want that to look like? And then people tell me. And then my second question always is, well, what is your plan for that? Have you thought that through? How are you going to make that a reality? And I'm always so surprised when the answer I get from people is, well, I'm just kind of hoping that it works out, right? Someone actually said this to me yesterday on a phone call. I'm just kind of hoping that it works. And, hope is a really beautiful, wonderful thing that we need as a part of life. But hope is not the same thing as having a plan. Hope is not going to take you to a doctor's appointment one day, sit with you during surgery. Hope is not going to give you a shower one day or take care of you at home. Hope is great, but hope is not the same thing as having a plan. And so my hope for all of you today is that this presentation gives you something to think about. If Avenues feels like it might be a fit for what you're looking for your aging journey, great. I would love to follow up with you and have a conversation about that. And I do that with everyone who comes to these Zoom events anyways. I call you to say thanks. So I'll ask you, what is your plan? If Avenues is not for you, that's okay too. My hope is that today's presentation will spark some really great conversation between you and your loved ones about what is my plan? What is the future going to look like? How do I want to age? And how am I going to make that a reality for myself? So I want to close today with some time for questions. I've been talking a lot for the past hour. What questions do we have today that are still unanswered? Yeah, Jane, do you want to start and then we'll go to John when your mic is unmuted?
Okay, I have a few.
Sure.
How do you define Greater Grand Rapids area?
Great question. We service about a 30-mile radius around Grand Rapids. Central Grand Rapids is what we say. And so it kind of depends on your address, to be quite honest.
Mine is Jennison.
Then I would say most likely, yes. Yeah, we've got some people in Jennison.
Okay, yeah, we're only 8 or 10 miles out.
I think you'd be just fine in Jennison. Yeah, I was just in Jennison actually the other day in person with someone. So yeah, I would say 30-mile radius is how we gauge it.
Okay. My next question is these slides that you just showed us, are those available for you to send to us that we can have on paper?
They could be, yeah. So Jane, what I'll do is I will probably follow up with you maybe tomorrow and I'll get an email address and then that's something I can send to you. Sure.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I'm also interested in if you have any references. Do you share references that people could talk with other people who have become members?
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. What I love about this program is I actually think that our members sell this program better than I do, to be quite honest. And so many of them have said we are so willing to meet with people who are interested in this program, talk to people. We actually have a big event coming up. We do it every spring where we do a panel discussion with members in this program. And usually we've got 4 or 5 members that come in and just answer questions and talk about why did they choose this and what has it been like to be in this program. Or I can connect you with people individually to connect with. So yes, absolutely. Great
Okay.
question.
And then the last question, I just was going to ask for your phone number.
Oh, you know what? There you go. It's
Oh,
on the last slide.
oh, okay.
Yep.
Well, I just have to tell you, I think you did a fabulous job
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you, Jane.
introducing this. This is a brand new concept to me. I'm 74 years old, and so I'm beginning to think about things like this. You have, it's been so good that you've intrigued me to look further into it.
Yeah, I'm glad. You know, we're not new to the area, and yet I think senior living just dominates our market here in West Michigan. We are the only community who has a program like this, and most of the other communities are just still pushing the idea of you have to move to us. That's what we offer is we offer our senior living. And Porter Hills is kind of saying, you know what? People want different things. There are different paths that people choose to take. Sure, we've got senior living as well. But we want to help you stay home too, if that's your preference and if that's what you want.
I have never heard of it.
Well,
Never.
I'm so glad you heard of us today. I'm glad you joined us. And Jane, people ask me a lot. This is a commonly asked question. People ask, what ages do you typically see join avenues? So I'll answer that. I would say all ages. I mean, I've got a lady who just joined and she's 68. And I had someone who just joined recently and he was 80. So there's a range. It depends because of that health qualification. Obviously, it's easier to qualify usually the younger you are, but not necessarily. I think our age range is typically mid 70s and sometimes early 70s. But age alone is not a qualifier. It really is health and independence. So thanks for your question. John, did you have a question? You are on mute though. You'll have to unmute yourself. There we
you
go. Hi, John.
Hi. Like Jane, I'd be interested in copies of those slides if I could get them too.
Sure. Wonderful. I will follow up with you about that too.
And if I understood the other question she asked about coverage area, I'm in Allendale.
Yep.
Is that, would you say 30 miles around from what point? What was that? From Porter Hills area?
Here's what I'll say. If you got a mailer from us, if that's how you heard about us, then you are within our area.
Okay. All right.
That'll be my easiest answer today.
Yeah, I'm 85 years old now.
Sure.
And I won't hold you to this, but let's assume that I would qualify and for the membership.
Sure.
Give me some kind of an idea of how that costing would play out.
You're testing my knowledge, John, but I'm going to give you an answer. So how this program works is we have just a big table basically of all the ages and all the numbers. So I won't go through everyone's price today, but I will do that individually with you. I'll give you a rough price for 85. An entrance fee for 85 is going to be more about $147,000 ish.
Okay.
That's my rough guesstimation if I'm remembering. And I think I am. That's going to be pretty close. And I'll mention today, today's presentation is, this could be a 3-hour presentation. We have 2 avenues plans. So the plan I quoted today is our typical avenues membership, but we actually have a step down membership or a tier 2 membership as well. That's actually less expensive. And that's something that, I'll mention today and is worth thinking about if you're thinking, well, gosh, the prices I heard today are a little high for me. Our step down or our tier 2 pricing, oftentimes I find people who already have long-term care insurance are buying into, or sometimes that pricing is just a better fit for people. And there are a few differences with that program, but that's worth just knowing as well, as we do have 2 plans financially.
What are some of the significant differences between the 2 programs or 2 plans?
Sure. The difference with our tier 2 program is the coverage financially for your care. So with the pricing I gave today and the program I talked today, all of your care is covered by Avenues. With our tier 2 pricing or our step down pricing, half of your aging related care is covered by your membership. So there's just a difference in coverage. The concept of both are the same. You're still aging at home. You still get a navigator. We're still walking alongside of you, but one and the same. So there's just some differences, and we can talk more about that individually if you're open to it.
Mhm.
Gary,
Well,
you have a question. Oh,
Yeah,
I was going to
Thanks,
say,
John.
that's all I had. I just wanted to say too, that you did a very nice job.
oh,
presenting.
thanks. Thanks.
just a
Gary.
bit, could we have a bit more information about the stay-at-home care? Like, I gather it wouldn't cover live-in care. Would it cover care of someone who comes in every day?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, a lot of our members have needed daily care as they're aging at home, and Avenues does cover that. Absolutely. Yeah, we say that we cover you up to the skilled nursing rate, skilled nursing being the highest possible level of care that you would ever need. And we can go in a little bit more in depth of what does that look like at home, but we cover a lot of care at home, or a pretty large amount of care at home.
Okay,
What if
thank
a
you.
person needs 24-hour around the clock?
Yeah, so like I just mentioned, is the Avenues membership covers up to the skilled nursing rate, which today is $420 a day, if you're curious. So our Avenues members are covered up to that. That covers, gosh, I want to say 7 or 8 hours a day of in-home care is the equivalent, which is a lot of care. So it just, again, it depends on what your goals are. It depends on what your needs are as well. I referenced earlier coverage for more of a care-based setting as well, and how Avenues pays for you to be in assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing. Well, if there ever came a time in the future where really it just was not safe to keep you at home anymore, that's when we would talk with our members about making a move like that. We've never had to move any of our members to a care-based facility, but we have coverage in that area too for a reason, in case that ever needed to be a part of your plan in the future. Great question. Liz, did you have a hand up? You are on mute. Take yourself off mute really fast.
Okay. If a couple, like Mike and I are 81 and 77. So your entry fee would be, how do you, as long as you're both in, good
Yeah.
shape? How do
So you would have different entrance fees because of your age. So our 77-year-old, Liz, if that's you, your price would be less expensive than Mike's, for example. So the entrance fee itself really is based on age, and individually you have to qualify. So you'd have different prices is the answer.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
great question. Yeah.
I have some questions too, more than probably you want to take care of today. But the turnover of navigators, what's your history
That's a
been?
good question.
That is a great question. Mike, that was Mike?
Yeah.
Mike, great question. Turnover for member navigators is a very, very big goal for us / a high priority. I like to share that when we started in 2011, one of our first member navigator, she kind of helped spearhead this program and start this program when Porter Hills opened it. She was the first member navigator. She is still with us. She is now part navigator and also our executive director. So she, as our director, has been with us since we started. She understands and knows the importance of having navigators that stay long term. And do we have a perfect solution for it? No, I don't think it's ever possible to have a perfect solution, but we have a really low turnover with our member navigators. And I think that's partially because when we're hiring new navigators, we are looking for someone who's looking to stay long term. And we are looking for a certain type of personality, a certain person who is interested in being in a role that has long term relationship building associated with it. And so our pool of people, nurses, LPN, social workers, we're looking for really unique people who want to age with our program, is my honest answer. So that's a priority for us.
Okay.
How, can you give us an idea of how large the program is in terms of patients? And
Yeah.
have you ever had to pause any growth saying, okay, because maybe the limitation of the number of navigators, you might say we're it's almost like if you were in the building business, you're going to expand and you would have to construct that new building. So
Yeah, great question. The unique thing about Avenues, Mike, is we're not a building and we're not, we're not a building. So we don't really have capacity issues, if I might put it that way. We hire more navigators as our program grows, is essentially how it's always worked. So we keep a really low ratio between member navigator to member. We keep about a 1-to-20 or a 1-to-25 ratio. We keep it small for a reason because we want our navigators to be able to spend a lot of time with our members and to build that relationship with them. So we add more as people join this program. There was a period of time, you asked about, has this program ever paused? There was actually a period of time that it did pause for Porter Hills. And it was when we were going through our affiliation back in 2018. We were growing and looking for an affiliate partner as an organization. And so we paused some of our home-based programs for new memberships at the time. But the program itself continued on and continued to care for all of our members, and then did eventually reopen actually about a year ago. So this not new, but Avenues being open to the public again did happen within the past year.
who are your partners? What?
Yeah, we affiliated with the United Methodist Retirement Communities on the east side of the state. And so now all together, we have our name of Brio Living Services. So it was the United Methodist Retirement Communities and Porter Hills came together. We are now one organization, a fairly large organization now called Brio.
Okay, okay.
Good question.
Is there information about the concept of living at home? You mentioned that there are 40 entities like yourself.
Yeah.
Has there been work in that regard in studying?
Yes. Yes and yes and no. I mean, the interesting thing about continuing care at home programs, and maybe why some of you have said, I've never heard of Avenues, I think is partially because there isn't a lot of news out there yet about us, but there are other programs like us that are even bigger than Avenues and have been around longer than us. A great example is one of the biggest continuing care at home programs is called Kendall at Home. They're in a few different states actually, and they would be a good one if you're looking at who else is like Avenues or what else is out there. That would be a great one to get on Google and look up. But it is still, I think, considered to be, even though they've been around for a long time, a relatively newer concept or a relatively newer program compared to senior living that has just been around for so long. So we're still a part of a community. We're a part of a senior living organization. We're just one of the entities or one of the programs within Porter Hills or Brio. Great
Okay.
question.
I get the feeling that the program is a very personal type, the culture, and so forth. Are you looking at the danger of becoming large and bureaucratic?
That's a hard question to answer. My hope would be no. And I think as a program, because you have one member navigator, the program doesn't feel large and bureaucratic or too big because really you're building that relationship with your navigator. So I would say that would not be the hope, is we would want this to stay a really personal program. I think that's the best answer I have today for that answer, for that question.
Like any organization, you're fairly flat. You don't have a lot of levels, right?
Say more about that.
Well, I mean, you don't have assistant navigators and
Correct. Yep. You keep your same navigator the whole time. So there are not different navigators if your level of care increases or decreases. You keep the same one.
okay. I would just like to compliment you on how you
Both of
manage
us.
this.
Yeah.
And also, I think the concept is really great. If, as it has for you, you worked it out. It seems like it's
Right.
been successful.
Especially for those of us who live in Grand Rapids, but our kids don't.
Yeah. And that is Liz, you're hitting something right on the head there. A lot of our members have joined Avenues because of that. They've said our kids aren't local, but we're staying in Grand Rapids, or people say we don't have kids, or I mean, some people have just told me we have great kids, but I'm sorry, I'm not going to ask my kid to give me a shower one day. And I don't want to talk to them about my toileting needs when I age. And I think that's really understandable. Aging is an intimate and sometimes private thing that you don't want to have your kids be your caregivers. You want your kids to be your kids. And I get that. So I just have I've been with the organization about 5.5 years. I started as our social worker in our independent living, actually. And I switched to Avenues because so many of the people I was working with, when the time came for care, they didn't want to move to assisted living. They didn't want to move to skilled nursing. They wanted so badly to stay home. And yet at that point, they didn't qualify for something like Avenues. It was too late. And I just love this proactive approach of, I think people should be able to live how they want and age how they want. And sometimes that means proactively planning and joining a program like Avenues. So I love being a part of this team. And like Jane asked earlier about meeting members, our members sell this program 10 times better than I do. And so if that would be of interest to you, I would love to connect you with someone who's been in this program a while, so you can really get a sense for why do people choose us. And I think you'll come to find that our members are really happy, which is great.
You know,
So,
one comment I
Do
like
you,
that I get the sense, listening to other participants' questions, that we have a lot in common with other potential members. And do you find that there's even some value in having camaraderie between?
I do. I really do. I think our members are oftentimes proactive. They are passionate about staying home and they like to build community with other people who are also interested in that same aging experience. And a lot of our members are actually quite social with each other. We have different social events on a regular basis where members get together. We've got outings and just social things for people if you wanted to get to know other members. And a lot of our members have chosen that over the years, which has been awesome. So,
Right.
all right, I have gone way over our time today. I apologize. So just know that I will follow up with each one of you. We've had some great questions today. So I will make time to give all of you a call to continue answering questions. Thank you so much for your time today and for joining me. I really appreciate it. And just thank for your time.
thank you very
you.
much.
Yep, thanks.